Hi, everybody. This is the lesson 12 lecture for the novel Ties. I hope you're all doing well. It's a tough time for everybody. So, the novel Ties by Domenico Starnone, who's an Italian author, is a very dense and brutally honest book about infidelity, about what happens when a husband falls madly in love with someone other than his wife. It is also a book about a wife's profound and obstinate suffering. I say obstinate because Wanda, the wife, makes it her business to suffer wildly with true abandon, to not only torture her husband with her suffering, but also her children, Sandro and Anna. The plot points are mainly handled by the questions in lesson 12. And we'll have a discussion board on the answers, and I'll also be doing Blackboard Collaborate on those questions. So we'll work through the answers together so that hopefully this can secure the events of the novel in your mind. The book is divided into 3 books: Book 1, Book 2, and Book 3. Book 1 includes Vanda's letters to Aldo regarding his affair. The tone of the letters is bitter. You can feel when you read the letters how they sting. The letters were written when Aldo first started seeing Lydia in 1974. And they end in 1978, although we have no delineation between one letter to the next. It's just all kind of put together. So in these letters, you get the full brunt of Vanda's anger, and you can see how intense a person she is. She writes to Aldo mainly because she wants to know why Aldo has left her, why he is choosing Lydia over her. We feel Vanda's pain, but we're afraid of it too. The way Aldo is afraid of it, and the way Sandro is afraid of it, and Anna, their children. One would think that after 4 years of an affair, that the suffering and pain would soften, that Vanda would soften. But it doesn't, and she doesn't. Why is this? What is in Vanda's identity that makes her suffering paramount? Well, she has nothing else, really. And that's part of the problem. She doesn't have any passions. She doesn't have any hobbies or anything to divert her attention. She doesn't have a career. She believes things should be a certain way. Women get married and they stay married. And Aldo believes this at first too, but his beliefs change. Women get married and raise children. That was the generation that she was from. She came of age in the 50s. So she believes she's doing her part, and she can't understand, she can't comprehend why her husband is relinquishing his. In book 2, the point of view switches from Vanda to Aldo, and we're now in contemporary time. sometime in the 2000s, maybe. I'm not sure if there was a date given. Maybe it's 2005. I don't know. We get his side of the story, which is really interesting because you have this dichotomy of Wanda and Aldo, this black and white sort of thing going on. And we can't help but empathize with Aldo and his feelings for Lydia. Lydia makes him feel alive. She gives him joy. He doesn't want to relinquish the joy. Who would want to relinquish joy? It's so hard to find that in this life as an adult. So Aldo realizes this, and he just can't give Lydia up. Not for Wanda, not for Sandro, not for Anna. Book 3 is from the perspective of Anna, who is now grown, who comes up with a master plan to take revenge on her parents for messing up her life. We see through Anna how incredibly damaged she and Sandro are because of Aldo's affair and their mother's suffering, their mother's rigidness, really. Neither one of them can manage a committed relationship, according to Anna. Anna thinks the worst thing a person can do is to have a child. Sandro can't keep a job and has a child with each of the women he falls in love with, and there are 3. It is through Anna that we see the ramifications of opening Pandora's box. And here's where we enter the realm of symbol. The cube, Aldo's cube, where he keeps the nude photographs of Lydia, is a cube for a reason. It is a box. It is Pandora's box. And there's a link in the lesson to the mythology behind Pandora's box. When Pandora's box is opened in mythology, all of the evils are spread out and put onto the world. The evils of war, the evils of disease, the evils of poverty. So the cube with the nude pictures of Lydia, when it is opened and the apartment is demolished. So that is sort of representative of how the affair has literally demolished the people that it concerns. The irony of the situation is that Aldo and Wanda, 2 people who cause such grief in one another, reunite and live out their old age with one another. Once they are back together, they stay together, and one of the outstanding questions of the novel is, why is this so? Aldo says more than once that he loves Wanda. And Wanda, no matter how threatening and terrifying she can be, does not let go of Aldo. The question is, why? The last thing to note about the novel is the setting. The affair between Lydia and Aldo occurs in the 70s after the sexual revolution of the 60s. Aldo calls the era the culture of deinstitutionalization, where marriage, a particular institution, is confining and one should not repress one's desires. That was the thinking back then. The era itself gives license for Aldo to free himself, albeit temporarily, from Wanda's shackles. To note, Ties is a translated work. Jhumpa Lahiri, who is a Pulitzer Prize winning writer, She won the Pulitzer Prize for Interpretive Maladies, which is a wonderful book. And one of the stories is in your text. Which one is it? A Temporary Matter is in your text. And if you have time, read it. It's a brilliant story. So Jhumpa Lahiri is the translator. She has studied Italian, and she moved to Rome, I believe. She moved to Italy for 5 years and immersed herself in Italian. And when she read Ties, she was blown away by the book. And she met Domenico Starnone, and they formed a relationship. And Domenico Starnone asked her to translate Ties, which is the first book of his that she translated. She translated Trick, the book that came out after this, and she did a fantastic job. So the video that I include in the lesson, it's long. You can look at the first part of it, and I'd say the middle part, around 34 minutes. To get an idea of what it takes to translate a book. Ties in Italian is lacci. Lacci means laces, but laces just doesn't work. It doesn't depict the how do I say it? The capturing that happens in the novel. Lacci is also, in Italian, a means of capturing. Aldo and Vanda, and in a sense, Sandro and Anna, are bound to each other. They're bound. They're tied to one another. So laces didn't really cut it. Jhumpa Lahiri chose the word ties, which is better. So take a look at the video. I just have a couple more things to talk about. There are pre-writing charts for each of the prompts. Take a look at those. Prompt 1, Jhumpa Lahiri, the translator of the novel Ties, says Ties is about what happens when structures, social, familial, ideological, mental, physical, fall apart. It asks us why we go out of our way to create structures only to resent them in the end. It is about our collective primordial need for order and about our horror just as primordial of closed spaces. Write a response essay that explores how this relates to Aldo and his marriage. Aldo's thoughts on his marriage change after he meets Lydia. So the chart should have pre-Lydia, where you list all of his thoughts on marriage, why he got married, what he believes marriage is, etc. And then after Lydia, once he's in a relationship with Lydia, what does he think of marriage then? Prompt 2 contains the myth of Pandora. Jhumpa Lahiri says the myth of Pandora is the leitmotif of Ties. The leitmotif is a repeated symbol. Examine the myth and explain how it relates to the book. Be specific on what event mimics the opening of Pandora's box and the effects this has on the characteristics. There's 3 levels of thinking about this. First is Pandora's box. When Pandora's box is open, the evils of the world are spread and inflicted upon humanity. The second is we have the opening of the cube, which allows for the affair to reemerge. And remember, the cube is open and the apartment is just destroyed. So that is very symbolic. And the opening of the cube is symbolic of the affair and what the affair does on an emotional level to the children. Prompt 3, Vanda and Aldo are 2 very different people who got married early in life without either having the self-awareness to know if what they were doing was right. The irony of the story is that these 2 people who at times despise one another stayed together. Compare and contrast Aldo and Vanda with respect to marriage, love, children, and self-identity. why did Aldo and Vanda stay together despite their animosity toward one another? And this is a pretty simple compare and contrast chart, Vanda and Aldo, with respect to marriage, love, children, self-identity. So that's it for the lecture. Work through the questions. We will be answering them in the Collaborate session, as well as the Blackboard posting next week. And stay safe during this difficult time. I miss seeing your faces. Bye.